To myself, 10 years ago, if you're reading this letter, maybe you've survived the nightmare. But no, this isn't a note from the future. This is my return. From me, from Sarah, from you, the girl who left Westford with trembling feet and tear-soaked eyes 10 years ago. Westford greeted me with a leaden afternoon. The clouds drifted silently over the worn hills, and the wind blew in that familiar way, not fierce, just cold. The train station hadn't changed a bit, the same crooked wooden benches, the swaying antique clock that never kept time, and the dust thick with the scent of iron. I stepped onto the platform like someone entering a long-forgotten dream. For 10 years, I lived like I was running, from memories, from helplessness, from that cursed day, the day my father was killed. Everything happened too fast. The news, the police, the rushed funeral, the even faster trial. And then it all ended with a stranger's name, Malik Johnson, the man they said killed my father. I believed it, or rather, I had to, because if I didn't believe it, I would lose my mind. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I know how to read case files. I can hear what silence says in a testimony. I understand how justice is often just a game of power. And most of all, I know Malik is innocent. This afternoon, I stood for 5 minutes outside my father's old office. The sign said, David Miller, attorney and judge, though half the letters had fallen off. The door was rotted, the lock rusted. A cold anger pulsed in me. My father wasn't just killed, he was erased. I rented a small room above Mrs. Holton's bakery. Yes, the same apple pie from back in the day. She recognized me instantly and simply said, "Your eyes are the same, just sadder now." I didn't cry. My eyes only stung. Because I know I didn't come back to grieve. I came to fight. Malik's retrial is in 3 weeks. I filed the motion, and surprisingly, the new judge approved it. Maybe they think I'll fail quickly. Maybe they fear the press. I don't care. I have 3 weeks to tear apart everything. The records, the witnesses, the old testimonies, to find the cracks in the justice they manufactured. Everyone here looks at me like I'm carrying a disease. Some avoid me. Others whisper behind my back. But no one dares mention my father. They've forgotten, or they've tried to. I won't allow that. Tonight, as I sit by the window and watch the yellow light from the bar across the street, I write this letter as a reminder. I didn't come back for revenge. I came for the truth. But if the truth demands that someone pays the price, then I'll see this war through to the end. Father, I'm home, and I won't leave. Not until the shadows are dragged into the light. To Father, wherever you rest now, today, I began to unfold the case files you never got the chance to protect. Your old office is now a hollow, dusty room, cold like a crypt for rotting memories. But when I placed my hand on the drawer of your desk, where you once kept your Mont Blanc pen and leather notebook, it felt like touching an unhealed wound from the past. The room smelled of old wood, paper, and something else, a scent I couldn't quite name. Maybe fear. Every time I flipped a page, I could almost hear your voice, steady, decisive, never compromising with wrong. But today, there was no voice, only silence from the files and the ticking of the clock, counting down the last days of Malik Johnson's life. Then I found something. Hidden in the bundle of photocopied statements was a single handwritten note, not present in any official records. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Yours. Evidence Davar 17. DNA doesn't match. Re-interview second witness. Signs of coercion. You saw it. You knew. Why wasn't this ever brought to court? Why did no one speak of it? Or did someone bury it on purpose? I visited Malik this afternoon. The prison is an hour's drive from town. He didn't look like the dangerous murderer the media painted. just a tired man with a trace of something deeply human left in his eyes. Quiet hope. "You're David Miller's daughter?" he asked. "Yes, and I'm here to help you walk free." "Thank you, but I don't think anyone wants to hear the truth anymore." I told him we'd start from scratch. Every testimony, every drop of blood, every overlooked detail. At sunset, I stopped by the city archive, housed beneath the public library. Mr. Walter, a retired clerk who once worked with you, remembered me. He led me to the basement records and whispered, "David thought someone wanted him silent." A few weeks before he died, he told me, "If anything happens to me, don't believe a single official report." My hands turned ice cold. Everything I feared is slowly becoming true. Tonight I reread the entire original indictment, the very grounds on which the jury convicted Malik. It all hinged on a single witness, a teenage girl named Jenny Blake, who worked at a bar near the crime scene. She claimed she saw Malik walking into the alley 10 minutes before the murder. But something is wrong. Jenny was never re-interviewed. There's no audio recording, no secondary statement. I checked the local records. She left Westford just 2 months after the trial. I've decided to find her. Too many pieces don't fit. Holes in the story. Things a naive law graduate couldn't see 10 years ago. But I'm not blind anymore. Father, the truth doesn't vanish. It only gets buried under fear and power. But I'll dig it out, even if I must face every ghost you once stood against. If they killed to protect their secret, I know now I'm walking that same dangerous line. But this time I won't back down. We'll bring it all into the light. To the father who couldn't protect his own truth, today I left Westford, not to flee, but to pursue. For the first time in 10 years, I walked beyond the shadow of that town, not as a grieving daughter, but as a lawyer chasing justice. Her name was Jenny Blake, and if your handwritten note was right, her testimony was the keystone that locked Malik behind bars. At sunrise, I drove to the airport with a strange calm in my chest. Not fear, focus. According to residency records, Jenny moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2016, right after the trial. That's suspicious. Who leaves behind their hometown just weeks after a major criminal case? The flight was nearly 3 hours. I reread her trial statement while in the air. It was too clean, too polished, too perfect. Real witnesses don't speak like that. Only scripts do, only fear does. Charleston was sunny, colorful, and smelled like the sea. But I wasn't here for the charm. I had a list, her last known clinic, her latest job, old contact info. It took over 3 hours to find her, at a small medical clinic. She was a nurse. Her name badge read Jennifer Blake, but her eyes were still the eyes of that 17-year-old girl who helped send an innocent man to death row. She looked up and froze. "You're Sarah Miller?" "Yes. I'm here for the truth. No threats, no tricks, just truth." She led me to a small break room and sat down, hands clenched, eyes glistening. "I never thought this day would come." "You lied on the stand, didn't you?" "I was forced to." The story poured out like a storm. At 17, she was brought into the station after telling police she saw nothing clearly that night. A detective, Matt Colburn, threatened to charge her with perjury. Then came Mark Dunley, assistant DA at the time, who, she says, suggested I revise my statement into something more palatable for a jury. I was alone. My mother had passed. I was scared. They said if I signed, I could go home. So I signed. She wept. I sat silent. I asked if she would testify. At first, silence. Then, "I've been haunted for 10 years. I see that man's face, Malik, in my sleep. I can't carry it anymore. If you stand for him, I'll stand too." I pulled out my recorder, asked to capture her words. She nodded. That night, in a small hotel room, I replayed the tape. Her voice, her fear, her confession. All of it real, not the whole puzzle, but the first honest piece. I sent a copy to my legal partner in New York. He replied, "If she takes the stand, the system won't know what hit it." On the flight back to Westford, I stared out the window at the clouds. Long, heavy, like the layers of memory hiding the truth. But this time, I brought something home. Hope. Hope that after 10 years the darkness would finally meet the light. Father, did you ever imagine a trembling 17-year-old girl could hold the key to unlocking everything? I didn't. But now I know. Truth doesn't die. It waits for someone brave enough to bring it back. And that person is me. To Malik. Do you believe that sometimes the truth isn't buried? It's bought? I thought I was ready to face the truth, but I never imagined it would be this rotten. I found Jenny Blake. It wasn't easy. After weeks of chasing down old addresses, I discovered she was living in New Mexico. New name, new job. She's now a nurse at a private hospital. I didn't tell anyone who I was. I booked an appointment under a fake name, just to get close. When I walked into the room, she glanced at the name on the chart, then froze when she saw my face. Almost 10 years had passed, but she remembered. Her eyes widened. She stepped back, clutching her clipboard like a shield. I pulled down my mask. "I'm David Miller's daughter. We need to talk." We met at a cafe near the hospital after her shift. She looked at me like she was seeing an old nightmare come to life. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Jenny, just tell the truth. Malik is facing execution. You're the missing piece." She trembled. Her lips were dry and cracked. It took her a long time before she could speak. "I didn't see anything. I never saw any man go into that alley, but 2 men in suits. They said they were from the State Justice Department. They gave me 2 options. Say what they told me to say, or lose my college scholarship." It felt like my heart dropped to the floor. "You lied." I was 17. I was scared. I didn't know it would get someone killed. I sat in my car for a long time after our meeting. Streetlights painted the windshield in a dull yellow glow. I didn't feel anger, just a hollow ache, as if I'd fallen into a deep pit and realized I'm not just fighting a case, I'm fighting a system. The next day, I returned to Westford. I went straight to the current district attorney, Helen Rourke. She used to be an assistant DA during Malik's trial. She greeted me with a polished fake smile. "Sarah Miller, I thought we'd seen the last of you." "And I thought justice didn't come with an expiration date." I handed her the new affidavit from Jenny Blake. I had recorded the conversation and had Jenny's signed statement confirming her testimony was coerced. Helen frowned. She read the document slowly, then looked up. "This is a serious accusation, but courts don't reopen decade-old cases easily." "He's about to be executed," I snapped. "She was forced to lie, and my father died investigating this." Helen didn't flinch. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Not fear, calculation. That night, I was followed. A gray SUV with no license plate trailed me from City Hall all the way to my motel. I changed directions, turned suddenly. It stayed behind, headlights flooding my rearview mirror. I pulled over, pretending to answer a call. The SUV stopped too, 30 meters back. When I stepped out and walked toward it, it roared off. "Someone doesn't want the truth uncovered." I went to see my mother. She's lived quietly ever since Dad died. When I told her everything I'd learned, she cried. Then she opened his old safe. Inside was my father's leather-bound notebook, his private case notes. One page made my hands go cold. Suspicion, Helen R. Received campaign funds from Thorn Security. A private defense firm with ties to a former victim of Malik? My father had suspected Helen. He knew there might be a conflict of interest. But why hadn't he said anything? Had he meant to? Before someone stopped him? I returned to the prison, armed with the recordings and the new affidavit. Malik's new defense attorney, Mr. Chambers, listened quietly. When I finished, he said only one thing. "We have grounds to request a retrial. But be ready. They won't go down without a fight. There's hope for Malik, but I know. The real battle is only beginning. David Miller's daughter isn't just here to argue in court. I'm here to tear down what killed my father and nearly killed justice itself. Dear Father, I don't know whether I'm writing this in tears or blood, because everything is breaking apart, not in silence, but with the screaming voice of truth." After Corwin's testimony, court adjourned for 3 days to review the evidence. The press didn't sleep. They tore through every corner of Helen Rourke's life. They traced shady donations from Thorne Security. And then an anonymous USB arrived at the courthouse. What was in it? A video. Father, it was the North Alley footage Corwin mentioned, but more than that, it captured a full meeting between Helen, Judge Luke, the one who presided over your case, and a masked man. His voice distorted but unmistakable. "If Malik is convicted, your reputation will be secured. In return, let Ford's case disappear." Your case. Helen didn't protest. She nodded. When court resumed, Chambers presented the USB. He didn't argue. He just played the video. The entire courtroom held its breath. When it ended, Helen sat still. No objections, no defense. Then she rose. "This trial need not continue," she whispered, only loud enough for the first few rows. "I will accept investigation. You know what, Dad? We think evil dies loudly at the height of its sins. But it doesn't. It collapses in a quiet nod, with no one left to hold it up." Malik was declared innocent after nearly a decade behind bars. The man the whole country once despised now walked out in tears, met with thunderous applause. I stood silently, not happy, not sad, just lighter, like the heaviest stone in my chest had been laid down. Police launched an investigation into Helen and Judge Luke. A day later, headlines burst everywhere. Helen Rourke had disappeared from her home. No one knew where she went. Luke was detained. The probe expanded to Thorne Security. New names began surfacing. But for me, one thing is now certain. You didn't die in vain. Truth has finally spoken. I kept my promise. Dear Dad, today marks exactly 3,121 days since you left me. Almost 10 years. I thought I'd end this journey in tears, but I'm not crying. I'm writing this letter, the last one, from the very place it all began, your old study in the family library. Since the trial ended, the whole nation has changed. Malik became a symbol of resilience. Books, documentaries, and movies were made about his case. But I know that behind all the spotlight is a man relearning how to live. He and I still talk, not as savior and saved, but as two survivors of the same nightmare. Helen Rourke never resurfaced. Some say she fled the country, others whisper she was silenced. But honestly, Dad, I no longer care. I'm not chasing her. I don't even want to see her behind bars, because the greatest punishment is living with the truth when it never stops whispering your name. Chambers retired. He smiled and said, "Now it's your turn, Sarah." And I knew he was right. I applied for the district attorney's office, not for revenge, but to protect those who had no voice, like Malik, like you. My first case? A young girl falsely accused of theft. Evidence showed a supermarket guard staged the whole thing. When I looked into her eyes, terrified, helpless, I understood. My journey isn't over, Dad. Some nights I still wake up to the sound of that gunshot. Some mornings I sit in my car outside the courthouse, hands trembling, afraid to step inside. But every time I think of you, the man who once believed justice can't be bought as long as someone has the courage to fight for it. Now, that someone is me. Your photo on the desk is faded, but I won't replace it, because even in those blurry eyes, I still see one thing: hope. This final letter isn't an ending. It's a beginning. Your daughter, Sarah Ford. Westford was no longer a town of whispers, corrupt trials, or ghosts of the past. 10 months after Sarah began working at the district attorney's office, the town began to change, not because of the headlines or the justice icon title she was given, but because of the way she chose to serve, quietly, tirelessly, and always on the side of truth. Malik now lives in a small southern town. He grows flowers, paints, and occasionally visits schools to talk about his years behind bars without justice. In one handwritten letter to Sarah, he wrote, "The day I truly became free wasn't the day I walked out of prison. It was the day I saw people start believing in justice, because someone had the courage to reclaim it." Sarah keeps that letter next to a copy of her father's case, a case that was never retried and no longer needs to be. And what I want to say is Courtroom Revenge, not just a story about revenge. It's a journey of overcoming pain through intelligence, faith, and courage. It's a story of those forgotten, buried under prejudice, power, and silence, who still found their way back to the light. In a place where the law was once manipulated, where right and wrong were twisted under courtroom lights, Sarah chose to fight not with bullets or bitterness, but with conviction and moral clarity. Justice is not retaliation. It is restoration, and sometimes the most noble form of revenge is making the truth speak when everyone else has gone silent.